Hello and welcome to the Modern Arizona podcast. I'm your host, attorney Billie Tarascio, joined today by Lora Cheadle, who has quite the background, quite the biography, and we're going to be talking today about healing from betrayal. She has an incredible story where, after being married for 23 years, found out that she was being cheated on for most of them and managed to move beyond that to find reconciliation. That's incredible. Okay, Laura, go ahead, talk to us about your story and how you ended up here in your career.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and thank you for the intro. I am a former attorney as well. And when I left the practice of law, I went into legal wellness and I was doing, leadership wellness coaching, and I was really working in the whole mind, body, spirit, how to be healthy, how to be happy, how to be just all of those things. So you could maintain a healthy practice for the long term. I truly thought my life was amazing. I adored my husband. I had kids. I had this great work-life balance. I really thought things were going well.
Yeah.
So, as you can imagine, when I found out that, as you said, my husband had been cheating most of our marriage,
Wow.
it completely blindsided me. Completely, because even looking back on it, it's not like, "Oh, there were the clues that I missed." I didn't see how I could recover. I didn't see how I could make sense of this. I felt like my entire life had been a fraud, and I truly thought, "This is it. This is one of those things that will take me down and ruin me forever." So, fortunately, I had a lot of skills. I had a lot of tools being a leadership wellness coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I employed a lot of those tools. I also got help, therapy, counseling, betrayal recovery. And through it all, I learned that there's a lot of great resources out there, and there's also a lot of not great resources.
That's such a good.
Yeah, exactly. And recovering from betrayal is a completely different kind of recovery. It's not grief, it's not loss. It's got components of those things, but it's a different animal. So that's when I started putting together, what is betrayal? How do you define it? What does it do to you? What does work and what doesn't work in healing it? And that's how I came to this work, partially through my own journey, partially from the experiences that I had had in the past.
So we need to have two episodes then. We need to talk about skills to avoid burnout and leadership training and coaching and balancing the spiritual and having a fulfilling life. We have to talk about that. But today we're going to focus on this betrayal piece. Can you tell me first, how did you discover these affairs?
So, as with so many people, it's not that there is just one discovery or a D-Day. The very first thing I discovered was some pretty provocative Facebook messages back and forth between another woman, which was explained away as, oh, it was just flirting and I was feeling bad about myself and nothing happened. She's in a different state. We were just flirting. Then 6 months later, I got a picture of him naked sent to me in the mail in a card. Yeah, so that was confusing, horrifying, shocking, all of the things. That uncovered another woman. From there, I started digging through texts. I started digging through emails. I started looking through things. Pretty soon, I discovered the 15-year affair. Then he ended up telling me about the other two. But again, this was like over a 6, 7-month period.
Okay. So I cannot imagine how devastating that 6-month period must have been.
Right. Right. Because every time you think, okay, this is what happened, and I'm making sense of it and I'm understanding it, bam, another shoe drops. And then you're like, okay, now I have to go back and make sense of what I thought I already made sense of. And now I'm going to put this back together. Bam. I mean, it just kept coming.
Well,
And
and like the whole basis of a relationship, you have to have trust.
yes,
If there's no trust, you're sabotaging your relationship, right? Because you're going to be looking for them to fail and
yeah, yes. And like that, I thought we had a really good connected relationship. So then
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand, who is this person?
Right.
And were my beliefs wrong? And then how can I be so stupid to have not
Right.
seen this? And maybe I can't trust myself. And maybe my intuition is broken. Maybe my brain is broken. Why can't I? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Why am I not good enough? Because then it starts going into, what have I done wrong? I must be awful, stupid, ugly, dumb, bad, worthless. Because why would somebody else do this to you if you're a good, kind, worthy person?
Right. All great questions. How
Mhm.
in the world do you reconcile all those?
It's hard. It's hard, and it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes understanding of a lot of bigger picture things. Because here's the thing, we think life and people are linear and logical. They're not. People have probably heard about cognitive dissonance,
Mhm.
basically hypocritical behavior. We
Yeah,
say we think we believe one thing, but we act a completely different way. That's actually normal. That's actually normal. Most of us have cognitive dissonance in some areas of our life. Most of
sure.
us say our values, our beliefs are one thing, but we don't act in accordance with them. So
Wow.
there's one layer, understanding human nature.
Mhm.
There's another layer, and I want to be very clear saying this. My husband had a background of severe trauma. I did not understand what trauma does to a person. I've got a great understanding of trauma now. I'm a trauma certified life coach. I didn't understand what trauma was and what it meant. And what I want to be clear about, it's not an excuse. We can't say, oh, he had a traumatic background, so it's really not his fault. It's not an excuse, but it's an awareness and it's an understanding. And it explains why people have certain kinds of behavior. So, folding that in, the understanding and the awareness of trauma and what it does for a person, and just the whole concept that hurt people really do hurt people. So, there's layers of understanding. In my case, also, he not immediately, but he started coming to the party, so to speak. He started saying, this is what I was doing. This is how I'm broken. This was me. This was not you. So then we started having conversations and I could ask him direct questions and we could start unpacking it and figuring it out together. Because when somebody cheats, it's because they are broken in some way. It's because they can't communicate. It's because they're hurting, and it's cheating is a tool. It's a tool for them to feel better. It has nothing to do with the person that they're cheating on.
So this seems hard for me to really grasp because there are people who cheat at all stages. I know of a couple, and I don't even love the word cheat, but
I
the
know.
wife began an affair 3 months after having a baby, and we're 30 years down the road, and those 2 people are still together. And so
Mhm.
it's hard for me to think that in that case, that was a coping mechanism gone wrong. But then there are other cases where you've got people who are chronically lining up all sorts of random sex acts via the internet, and it feels like a completely different thing.
Yes, yes, because there's sex addiction, and that's a whole different thing. It's like any other kind of addiction. There's porn addiction, there's sex addiction. It's not that it's always one root cause, but the underpinnings of it are an internal dissatisfaction, an internal ability to cope, an internal lack of connection with one's own emotions, no emotional awareness, and a feeling of desperation that I have to feel better. And I
Mhm,
don't know how to feel better. And this might be a way that helps me feel better. Like the woman who had the affair 3 months after the baby.
mhm,
Who knows what's going on in her mind, but
mhm.
one can guess she doesn't feel sexy, desirable. She's lost that part of her that is wild and joyful and free, and that, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I feel trapped in this new role, and I don't know how to verbalize my feelings or get help or shift my identity around it. So I'm desperately going to reach out and have this affair because it's going to bring back a piece of me that I'm losing. but it
Mm.
has nothing to do with her partner. It has to do with her.
So, in your case, did you two separate at all, or were you able to work through this in the same home? What was the process like?
Great question. No, we separated. When I was finding out, it was like, "You need to leave.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
can't be around you." And
mhm,
we separated, but we continued the conversation. We
mhm,
continued texting, we continued email, we continued phone calls. Periodically, we would get together and talk, but I needed distance. I needed him to go away. I needed to reclaim myself. I needed to balance myself. I needed to go through my own grief, my
mhm.
own mourning. I needed to start figuring it out, get my head on my shoulders. And then
Yeah.
after a certain period of time, that's when he came to the point where he's like, okay, I need to renew this lease. Do I renew this? Or do I move home? And if I move home, what does that look like? Are we in separate rooms for a while? How is this going to work?
So, did you do personal counseling
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. Yes.
before trying marriage counseling?
Um, we had it's hard to really put a timeline to that because when I first found the text early on that was just the flirty text, nothing was going on. We had started marriage counseling around that. So we had been actively seeing a marriage counselor as I started finding these other things out. So we had done marriage counseling before. And then when I started finding out about the in person physical affairs that were so long term, that's
Yeah.
when I started getting my own personal counseling because I needed to heal me. I
Mhm.
needed tools and strategies, and I needed somebody to process with, and I needed a healthy, safe space to vent that didn't have anything to do with the marriage, that had to do with me.
Dante has levels of hell, and betrayal is the worst sin, according to Dante. How do you actually get over that? Like, I understand the stages of grief. Tell me about what are the stages of getting over betrayal?
Yeah, exactly. Betrayal is defined as the breaking of an expectation
Mm,
that ruptures your view of yourself or the world.
mm.
And I love Dante, and I agree that it is the worst level of hell because my sense of self was completely ruptured. My sense of the world was completely ruptured. If the person you love most in the world can do this to you, I don't know. I don't even want to be in this world. Like,
Right.
who wants to even engage in something like that? So, the first thing is to understand what betrayal is and what it's done to you. It's ruptured your view of yourself and it's ruptured your worldview. So, what do you need to do? You need to grieve the loss of those. And then, most importantly, you need to start rebuilding your view of yourself and your view of the world. That takes time. So, from where I sit, what it means to be healed from betrayal is you have rebuilt your identity and you've rebuilt your view of the world in a healthy, functional way. I'm a happy, positive person. That's who I am. I wanted to reclaim that identity. I wanted to be wiser, but I didn't want to become the bitter old woman. I didn't want to become cynical. I didn't want to become heavy and dark and grouchy. So, how do I rebuild myself? And then, how do I also rebuild my view of the world and trust? How do I open myself up to trust other people? How can I trust in my own intuition going forward? So healing from betrayal really means that's the first thing that you've rebuilt your view of yourself, your identity. You've rebuilt your worldview. The second piece of that I think is really vitally important that often gets overlooked is I have to rebuild myself on an energetic level.
Mm,
And that means where have I betrayed myself? Where am I abandoning myself? Where am I letting myself go? Where am I serving other people at the expense of myself? And I think, especially women in this culture, it's glorified to be self sacrificing. We talk about, and this is part of the whole burnout thing, this circles right into that conversation
yeah.
too. There's pride. I mean, when I was practicing law, there's all this pride in like, I'm so exhausted and I build all these hours and I'm just killing myself. It's breaking away from, no, that's a form of self betrayal. If you're not eating healthy meals, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not walking, engaging with loved ones, having a joy filled life, that's a sense of self betrayal. And it's having that strength of character, putting yourself first to nurture yourself first. So that's the energetic healing around betrayal. I'm not letting anybody betray me again to the best of my ability, but I can't control that. But I can control when I betray myself. If I say I'm stopping at 5, I'm stopping at 5. If I say I really need yoga, I'm going to go to yoga. It's
Mhm.
how do I heal myself from cultural beliefs, from conditioning to stop betraying myself.
But I don't see how that helps the you in that situation learn to trust your husband.
It's not learning to trust my husband. It's learning to trust me.
Okay.
We can ch- trusting other people can always get us burned
Yeah.
because we don't know what other people are doing.
Right.
We can use our intellect. We can use how does this feel? We can use our intuition. We can try to the best of our abilities to ascertain whether or not somebody is being honest. But there are liars out there. There's people who are really good manipulators out there. There's people who know how to gaslight. And it's coming to terms with the fact that I can still be hurt. But what I know is I trust myself more. I
Mhm.
trust myself to deal with it. I will
What does
always
it
have
mean
my own.
though? So there is always this possibility that this man that you love, that you're choosing to spend your time with, um,
Yes.
you're choosing to give yourself to, there's always this possibility that he may fall back on this other behavior and you may not
Yes.
know about it. And the
No.
thing is, like, you have to, are you at the point where you're like, that's okay? The benefits outweigh the risks. I'm good with that.
Here's the yes and no. I'm not okay with it. Whether it's this relationship or any other relationship, can somebody cheat on me again? Absolutely.
Right.
Can I be blindsided again? Absolutely. Am
Mhm.
I willing to open myself up for the joys of being in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, a business partnership?
Mhm.
I'm using my intellect. I'm using, my understanding. I'm using my intuition. I'm using everything that I know, and I'm making the best decision that I can, whether or not to trust. Again, whether it's on a business level, a professional level, a personal level, I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
And the benefits do outweigh it. I need people that help me in my business. I want friendships. I'm not going to be a loner and a recluse because, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, somebody might hurt me.
Right.
So I'm aware. I've got an awareness that I never had before. And the awareness is, yeah, somebody absolutely can hurt me. I'm wiser now. I know things to look out for. I'm not going to be paranoid. I'm not going to pick up his phone and check it every single day because this is my life and I want to live a certain way. And if something happens, I will deal with it. Whether it's this relationship or a different relationship or a business relationship or a friendship,
Yeah.
I can deal with it because I'm solid in myself.
Okay. So does that mean that the relationship that you and your husband have was healthy and still is healthy?
No.
Okay.
Here's I thought I thought our relationship was healthy before.
Mhm.
Here's what shifted in me and why I think I'm healthier. And because I'm healthier, I can have healthier relationships. The relationship can only be as healthy as the health of the individuals in that relationship. Before, I had a lot of perfectionistic tendencies. My idea of perfect relationship was kind of Instagram perfect relationship.
Mm.
We have this great house. We have these great kids. They're doing all the right things. I'm keeping my body in shape. I'm making these great meals. We're healthy. We're working out. We have friends. We're doing all the things. That's what I really felt was defining for a relationship.
Okay.
Yes, we had a lot of fun. Yes, we had a good relationship. But what it was lacking was a certain level of authenticity and awareness. As I mentioned earlier, he came from severe trauma.
Mhm.
When we met, his line was, "Yes, I came from severe trauma. He was physically tortured, he was mentally tortured, he was locked in a garage with crickets overnight. He did not have food for weeks at a time. He was
Mm.
beat to the point of, being bloodied, bruised. I mean, we're talking severe trauma." And what he said is, "And my brothers and I, we got over it." and we're successful and we put that behind us. When we met, being a 21-year-old with zero experience in trauma, it's like, yay, you did it. That's so cool. Wow, that's awesome. He lived his life thinking, I got over it. I put it behind me. I lived my life trusting that. I didn't know what was going on inside him. He didn't really know what was going on inside of him. So we had this great relationship that looked great on the outside, and we had fun, but we were never addressing some of these deep traumatic things. He didn't tell me what was going on inside of him. I had no idea what was going on inside of him. So now he is able to understand you don't just get over trauma by being successful and going to law school. Yay, it's over. I'm understanding all the things that I don't have to perform in a marriage to be loved. I get to just be me. If I'm a mess, the house is a mess, the dinner's a mess, we're a mess, it's all okay. Let's have some deeper, more intimate conversations. I am more aware and comfortable with me and myself. He is more aware and comfortable with himself. So then the two of us can come together and become truly more intimate. Is it perfect? No. But are we more intimate? Are we more emotionally connected? Yes. Do we have a better understanding of each other? Yes. So that's why it's a better, healthier relationship.
Hello, this is Billie Tarascio, owner of Modern Law. We're a family law firm in Phoenix, Arizona, with offices throughout the state. We have attorneys who can help you with every aspect of your family law case. We also have a legal clinic run by students for those of you who need budget-friendly resources, and we have lawyers who've been practicing for more than 20 years. Collectively, Modern Law has more than 200 years of legal experience. So when you hire Modern Law, you're not just getting an attorney, you're getting a team. If you live in Arizona and need representation, call us today. That's 480-649-2905 or visit us at mymodernlaw.com.
How do you know if you are emotionally intimate with your partner?
Ooh, there's probably different levels for different people. But for me, it's truly being able to show up unmasked, to have a safe space, to feel however it is that I'm feeling, whether it's crazy, whether it's sad, whether it's confused, and to be able to have some conversations just where we're not solving problems. We're just showing ourselves unmasked. Here's my fears. Here's my concerns. Here's my crazy. Here's my stress. And being able to hold each other through that and to just be a deep level of presence and safety.
So when you work with people who have been betrayed, what does that process look like?
I love that you use the word process because it is a process. And it is the steps of the journey, going through the understanding of how to identify what it is you're feeling, how to unpack the story of that betrayal, how to put the narrative and the understanding around that in service of choosing where you want to go next and how you want to be next. Because it's this combination of looking forward and looking backwards, looking to where you need to go and looking to what you need to address in order to get there. So we create a narrative around what happened so you can understand it. Because when you have the narrative, you can always go back to it, and that helps obsessive thoughts. This is what happened. This is why it happened. This is what I had to do with it. This is what I did not have to do with. This is mine. This is yours. Untangling. Once we have untangled our story from our betrayer's story, once we've put the understanding around that, then we start moving ahead into that. How do I want to be because of this? What are the qualities and gifts that I have received from going through this journey? How do I capitalize on those? And how do I use them in service of me and my future and who and how I want to be going forward? Claiming that vision of the future self and then backtracking. Who are the experts that I need? Do I need a marital agreement? Do I need a separation? Do I need a divorce? Do I
Mhm.
need a marriage counselor? Do I need a coach? Do I need a financial planner? Figuring out who are the experts that I need on my team along the way in service of that vision, and then holding their hand in the moment. In the moment work is so important. One of the
Mm.
things that I do for my clients is I offer them 24/7 Voxer access. I don't respond 24/7. I respond once a day. But when we have those thoughts, we need to get them out. What about this? What about that? Oh my gosh, in the moment. Change takes place in the moment. Change doesn't take place on biweekly sessions. It takes
Ooh.
place in the moment.
Okay, so that was my next question. How do people work with you?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love Voxer.
Voxer is a great walkie-talkie style app. And
Hmm.
because change does take place in the moment, we need to change. We're changing the wiring of our brain. We're changing the way we think. And that happens when we're pushed. So if your spouse is saying something that's triggering to you, if you get served maybe divorce papers and you weren't expecting it, you're triggered in that moment. That's when you need the support. That's when you need somebody to come in and say, here are your tools. Here's what we can do. What about this? To get you out of that
Mm.
survival portion of your brain back into the prefrontal cortex so you can rationally process and make decisions. So when I work with people, I work with them for 6 months because life happens in 6 months. It's not
Really?
just, yes, exactly. You're going to have good things happen in those 6 months. You're going to have bad things happen. And when you have the support along the way, that's what changes the way you show up. We
Okay.
have monthly sessions where we do coaching and hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy helps rewire the subconscious portion of the mind. We do weekly emails with assignments, and that Voxer is where the magic is because that way, in the moment when you're triggered, you talk to me and we figure out, what do I do differently? What do I do differently? One of my favorite quotes is the Einstein quote: we don't solve problems with the same logic that got us into those problems. And it takes about 6 months to figure out, what is a different kind of logic? What is a different kind of behavior? What is a different kind of resource to change the dance? Because if I change the dance, it either forces my partner to dance differently, or it's going to force them away and bring in maybe a new partner who dances differently. But it's about you and changing you and creating your world to fit around you instead of constantly being a victim of circumstances and
Yeah.
constantly reacting instead of creating.
Hmm. Okay, so 6-month program. Voxer allows people to talk to you about what it is that they're struggling with in the moment.
Yes.
You respond once a day. So if somebody sent you 10 messages that day, you're
Mhm.
going to respond with one message back. Is it a video or
It's
audio?
audio. It's audio. You can either do text. I like using it as a texting app, or you can do it as voice. And
Voice memo.
most people use it as voice because there's power. You talk about speaking your truth, speak
Mhm,
your truth, speak
mhm,
emotions, get it out there. And
mhm,
yes, sometimes I'll respond to each one individually.
mhm,
Sometimes I'll respond to one. Sometimes I'll tell people, go back and listen to those messages. Go
mhm.
back and listen to what you said. If a friend was saying that to you, what would you say to them?
Okay. And then, so once a month you're doing individual coaching,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
then you've got Voxer, and then what was the other component of the program?
There's a couple of components. I send weekly email assignments. So you're
Okay,
constantly moving forward. That's the roadmap. That's
okay,
the step by step. How do I get where I want to be? What am I creating next? What am I going back and integrating? So it's
okay.
the weekly emails that gives you the structure of the roadmap.
Sure.
And at the end of each coaching session, we coach for 60 minutes.
Mhm,
Then for 30 minutes, I do a customized hypnotherapy session
mhm,
that I
mhm,
record and
mhm.
then send to the client so they can use that anytime that they need it. And
Okay.
what hypnotherapy is, basically meditation. It's basically a
Mhm.
guided meditation. But what it helps you do is rewire the subconscious portion of your brain.
So I know coming out of my divorce, I did EMDR
Yes.
because I don't think anybody can get through a divorce without experiencing trauma. And there's something, when I would find myself getting triggered and just unwilling, unable to like process or see something differently, and the same things were triggering, it was really useful to be able to do EMDR and then no longer be triggered by that, like be able to be back in my rational brain.
Yes.
So does hypnotherapy do the same thing?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, if you or anybody is interested, I have got a free hypnotherapy that's part of my Betrayal Recovery Toolkit as my opt-in, and it's a 50-minute session. And I recommend using that for anything that's triggering you, whether it's kids, a
Yeah,
business partner, a
right.
spouse. You're right. EMDR, hypnosis, just rewire me and let's be done with it.
Because how frustrating is it when you find yourself in the loop? Like,
Yes.
nobody wants to be caught in the loop.
At all. We're done. Done with the loop.
You don't like the loop. The loop is awful, but like you can see it happening, you can feel it happening to yourself. So having a way to move beyond that, so useful. Okay, so how do people find you if they want to work with you?
They can go to my website, which is loracheadle.com, and it's Lora. It's a different way to spell Laura. Laura, LoraCheadle.com. And if they want to try that hypnosis, just
Mhm.
go to betrayalrecoveryguide.com and you can download the hypnosis as well as other things in my Betrayal Recovery Toolkit. But whoever you are, the hypnosis is going to work for everything.
Yeah, right. We all have things. We all have things.
Yes. Yes.
Laura, it was so great to meet you, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. And we're absolutely going to do another episode about leadership and burnout and powerful women and how you can, how we can unpack those things. So we'll have you back for sure. Thank you so much for coming on today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Modern Arizona podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, make sure to download it, like it, leave a review, and share it with your friends. If you know someone who would be a good guest or you would like to be on the Modern Arizona podcast, make sure to give us an email or reach out to us at mymodernlaw.com.